Hello everyone and welcome to the channel that's worth subscribing to for the thumbnails alone. Not me, and not the animals, and definitely not the green screen effects. The thumbnails. Anyways, my name is Zach and we are continuing our quest through the Minnesota Zoo to explore their Discovery Bay Aquarium, which means we're going to get up close to a lot of teeth. You're going to learn a thing or two on how you can protect life in the ocean, and we're going to encounter an animal that we may never see on the channel again. Oh yeah, and you might get a certain song stuck in your head. So with all that covered, let's begin. I know I said in my breakdown video that you can visit the Entrance Plaza, Tropics Trail, Minnesota Trail, and Discovery Bay without ever having to step a foot under the sun. But you're gonna wanna go outside after your time in the Minnesota Trail. Otherwise, you might miss out on some of the best views of nature the zoo has to offer, especially in the fall time. Along with, in my opinion, the better view of the Japanese macaque enclosure that's been here since opening day in 1978. Going back on track, the Discovery Bay was added in 1997. You have 20,000 square feet to explore, 12 exhibits, and get to know over 125 species. One thing you'll notice is that every station enforces the aquarium's "Our Oceans, Our Choices" conservation message, encouraging small actions that you can take to help protect the same wildlife that you'll see in today's video. The other thing you'll notice is the exhibit's open concept. The reason why I like to point that out is because most aquariums make you explore everything on a single path, but here it's pretty much a free-for-all. What we will do is go around this 1.1 million gallons in a counterclockwise circle. That way we start big and end even bigger. So let's begin with the Atlantic Reef, a 218,000 gallon underwater world, abundant with a dazzling array of colors, from the vibrant reefs and nearly 40 fascinating tropical creatures. I didn't have much luck with the Moray eels, but I was forgiven because, well, not very many people do. Also didn't see the rescued sea turtles, which you can also find in the Tropics Trail. Fortunately, the stingrays were virtually flying by. And then I saw why this display is also called the Shark Reef. I saw a bit of a blacktip, but so far you can probably tell that the stars are the sand tiger sharks, not tiger shark. I hear a lot of visitors get excited when they read their sign, but this is a different species. They're also known as the gray nurse shark, or more appropriately, the spotted ragged tooth. Some say tiger was added to their name because of their big appetites, and others say aquariums invented it to make them sound even more frightening, which clearly they don't need a special name to give them a more frightening reputation. I still remember as a kid flipping through my animal books, and I refused to even touch the pages with sand tiger sharks on them. I was that scared of them. They have about 90 jagged teeth, and that hovering thing that they have going on is a little eerie, I have to admit. However, even with those spiky teeth, they're actually pretty chill, and they prefer smaller prey like rays, crabs, and squid, and even smaller sharks. So unless you're really asking for it, history shows they're not even too interested in sampling us. The second station quickly became one of my favorite touch tanks of all time. It's not just because it features animals you normally don't find in interactive exhibits, but also it's paired with an environmental educational theme. The leopard sharks and co live in this 7,000 gallon estuary. Estuaries are where rivers or other bodies of fresh water meet the sea, creating a rich, nutrient-filled environment that supports countless fish, birds, and other marine life. They act as nurseries, provide natural storm protection, filter pollutants, and even help prevent coastal erosion. The Our Oceans, Our Choice sign over here says what we put down our drains and sewers, even in Minnesota, affects estuaries, and we can plant more native vegetation in our yards in order to use fewer lawn products and pesticides. The far right corner highlights really small species that I see just about anywhere I go where there's salt water, but myself and visitors are always excited to come across them. In case you're ever walking along the sandy flats of eastern oceans, make sure you watch your step for spotted garden eels. They usually live in huge groups, sometimes in the thousands. They spend most of their lives in burrows that they dug themselves, and to keep their burrows from collapsing, they coat their burrows with mucus, which helps hold the sand together. Over here we have a common oddity, but still an oddity no less. Seahorses. I think we all know in their world, the dads give birth. But since we've covered that before, I wanted to talk about their other qualities. Unlike most fish, seahorses swim upright, using a tiny dorsal fin that beats 30 to 70 times a second. But they're still not the greatest swimmers, at least against a strong current, which is why they rely on their prehensile tails to anchor onto seagrass or coral. So rather than escape predators, they rely on camouflage. In fact, some species can even change their color to match their surroundings. There's 47 recognized seahorse species. 12 are classified as vulnerable, including the lined seahorse, threatened by pollution, habitat loss, and every year millions are accidentally or purposefully caught and sold as traditional medicine and even as souvenirs. So there, our choice sign offers a simple suggestion: just do your best to avoid buying dried decorative seahorses. As incredible as they are, I still find it hard to believe that sea dragons are real. They really do live up to their fairy tale name. Leafy sea dragons are seahorse relatives, and they are also poor swimmers. But they can't use their tail end to grip onto anything, so they mostly go with the flow of the ocean's current, but are equipped with nearly invisible fins that can move them around a little bit on their own. Fortunately for them, sea dragons have next level powers of camouflage and blend perfectly with the kelp and seaweed beds that are off the coast of southern and western Australia. Right now, I'm going to briefly take us backwards on the tour to the reef tank and the zoo's Tropics Trail. Not because it fits this video's aquarium theme, but I can finally give this line a payoff. This zebra shark, covered in spots as an adult. On a later Minnesota episode, you'll finally get to see what that looks like rather than just hear it from me. After over 3 years, I can finally show you how the spotted zebra shark got its name. They are born dark brown with yellow stripes, which according to the Mystic Aquarium helps them survive since they mimic the pattern of a venomous sea snake. As they mature, those stripes turn to spots, which also then helps them camouflage in coral reefs. That was taken in 2021, but a few months ago, the Baby Shark Nursery displayed young white-spotted bamboo sharks. According to their sign, the animals that grow up in here will eventually be moved to the Tropics Trail or in the Shark Reef in the Discovery Bay. Speaking of the Tropics Trail tank, the coral in here is artificial. The ones on our next stop in the Discovery Bay are real. Even though they cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, they give a home to over 25% of all sea creatures. They may look like plants, but they're actually animals. They're capable of eating, they have a digestive system, and they reproduce. Most of them have a special algae that grows inside their tissue, and this algae captures sunlight and converts it into energy and nutrients for the coral. However, simply put, pollution and rising temperatures can cause corals to be stressed. And when this happens, they will expel this tiny algae that gives them their color and nutrients. And this process is called bleaching. It weakens the coral and puts them at risk of starvation and disease. Fish also provide them with nutrients, mostly with their waste, and they do feed on any unwanted algae that can block the coral from sunlight. And that's one reason why the zoo has the Fish Smart Diner, to warn us about overfishing. Some of you actually might recognize this from our tours at the Monterey Bay Aquarium in California. So what you do is click on a fish from the menu, and a chef, or in Monterey's case, multiple chefs will appear on screen and tell you if it's okay to order this dish from a real-life restaurant, because it may or may not have been ethically sourced. In other words, overfished, which happens when large amount of fish are caught too quickly, leaving too few to rebuild their population. And if you would like to learn more and take part of this Seafood Watch program, I highly recommend you click on that card in the corner. That will bring us to the tide pool, a miniature version of a rocky Pacific shoreline, specifically Oregon's coast, according to the artist who designed this. These rocky pools are created when the tide goes out, leaving behind pockets of water that remain until the next tide comes in. Even when the water levels are low, they're still impacted by crashing waves, which is reflected here about every minute or so. The pool's conditions can change with each tide. Sometimes the water is fresh, sometimes it's warmer or saltier depending on the weather and time of day, making this a very unique ecosystem. This one is kept at a cool 52 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're invited to gently pet 10 species of urchins, sea stars, and anemones. Everything that you just saw so far is below an 800-seat amphitheater and the zoo's largest saltwater display, also known as the former site of their dolphin presentations. In the 70s, they originally lived in the Tropics Trail reef tank, believe it or not. Later, they were moved to the old beluga display outside about a decade later, before finding their way to the Discovery Bay in the mid-90s, until they finally departed the zoo in 2012. However, and this is one of my biggest zoo regrets, I missed out on their temporary return to Minnesota while they cared for the Brookfield Zoo's pod for nearly 2 years while their pavilion was being renovated. I don't even have to imagine that the dolphins are dearly missed by locals, but in their place, you can still find a species that's arguably equally as active and possibly as loved as dolphins are: sea lions. Flynn and Hudson from SeaWorld San Antonio. And I'm pretty sure they've added more over the last few months. The upper part of the theater has been closed every time I've visited, but one of the zoo's animal care technicians did hint that it might one day be used again for public sea lion demonstrations. Even with the upper portion closed though, as you can see, I didn't miss out on anything. Sea lions are a wonderful addition, and it definitely fills in that charismatic quality that the building was missing. If you happen to be a zoo enthusiast and know a thing or two about the Minnesota Zoo, I know that you're coming in here to see their Hawaiian monk seal. Their Hawaiian name means a dog that runs through water. Their common name comes from the thick fold of skin around their neck that resembles the hood of a monk's robe. Say hello to Ola, reportedly the only one of her kind outside of Hawaii. Before you say anything, they are mostly solitary. The zoo says that she rotates with the sea lions in the main display. I've yet to see or hear any evidence of that outside of this sign, but I did hear recently from a local, you might be able to catch her if you go to the top of the amphitheater in the morning, if it's open, and you might catch her sleeping on land in the back area. This is a very special animal for a lot of reasons. Some believe it is the oldest surviving species of seal, with evidence of their existence dating back to over 10 million years. But this streak is at risk of coming to an end, because they are also one of the most endangered species of seal. Their wild population has been decreasing sharply since the 1950s due to pup mortality, rise in tourism, and overfishing. They eat a lot of the same foods that we do, and, well, we usually, unfortunately, win in the end of that battle. It's gotten so bad that there are Head Start rehabilitation programs that collect young monk seals and raise and release them until they are strong enough to be on their own, simply because the youngsters are having trouble finding enough food. So right now there are between 1,200 to 1,500 left in the wild, and as low as those numbers are, NOAA states that they have seen a very small population increase over the last few years. And with that uplifting thought, this is where our tour of one of the best zoo-based aquariums I've ever seen will come to a close. While it may not be as immersive as the others, I love how Discovery Bay is interactive and hands-on in many ways. It features an incredible variety of creatures and inspires visitors to make small changes in their lives that can positively impact life in the ocean. The next time that you hear from me, our Minnesota adventure will continue with a walkthrough of an award-winning exhibit that will take us to Russia's Far East. So as always, until next time, stay tuned, stay wild, and if you feel like it, use the knowledge that you gained today to go make a difference.